July 16th, 1945, 8:36 a.m., San Francisco Bay. Captain Charles McVay III stands on the bridge of the USS Indianapolis watching his ship prepare for departure. He doesn't know where he's going. He doesn't know what he's carrying. He only knows that his orders come directly from the highest levels of command, that the mission is classified beyond top secret, that he is to proceed at maximum speed to Tinian Island in the Western Pacific, deliver his cargo, and ask no questions. Below deck, in a specially constructed compartment welded to the ship's hull, sits a lead cylinder 10 feet long and 2 feet wide. Inside that cylinder is uranium-235, enough for one atomic bomb. In another compartment, separately secured and guarded, are the remaining components for Little Boy, the weapon that will be dropped on Hiroshima in 3 weeks and kill 80,000 people in an instant. McVay doesn't know this. The Marines guarding the cargo don't know this. The 396 men aboard Indianapolis don't know they're carrying the most dangerous object ever created by human hands. They don't know they're about to complete the most important delivery mission in naval history. They don't know that in 2 weeks most of them will be dead, floating in the Pacific Ocean, being eaten alive by sharks while the Navy searches everywhere except where they actually are. Indianapolis is a Portland-class heavy cruiser. She's been in combat since 1942, fought at Guadalcanal, at the Aleutians, at Iwo Jima and Okinawa. She's been hit by kamikaze attack that killed 9 men and tore a hole in her hull. She's just finished repairs at Mare Island Naval Shipyard. She's ready for combat again. Her crew is experienced, professional, well-trained. They've survived 3 years of war in the Pacific. They're good at staying alive, but what's about to happen to them has nothing to do with combat skill or naval training or experience. What's about to happen is the worst disaster in US Navy history, a series of failures, oversights, and miscommunications so catastrophic that they'll haunt the survivors for the rest of their lives and drive their captain to suicide. The voyage to Tinian takes 10 days. Indianapolis sets speed records crossing the Pacific. She's travelling alone, unescorted because escorts would slow her down and this cargo cannot be delayed. This violates standard operating procedure. Ships are supposed to travel in groups for mutual protection. But this isn't a standard mission. July 26th, 1945, Tinian Island. Indianapolis arrives and unloads her mysterious cargo. The lead cylinder and the bomb components are transferred to waiting trucks, driven to an airfield, assembled into the weapon that will end the war. The crew of Indianapolis watches the unloading operation without understanding what they just carried halfway across the Pacific. McVay receives his next orders: proceed to Guam for routine resupply, then continue to Leyte Gulf in the Philippines, where Indianapolis will join Vice Admiral Jesse Oldendorf's task force preparing for the invasion of Japan. The mission is routine now. No special cargo, no unusual speed requirements, just a standard transit across the Philippine Sea. The combat intelligence briefing at Guam is routine and incomplete. McVay is told that the route to Leyte is lightly travelled, but safe. He's told there's been no recent submarine activity along this route. This is not true. Japanese submarine I-58 has been operating in these exact waters for weeks. But the intelligence officer at Guam doesn't know this or doesn't share it. McVay is not offered an escort. He doesn't request one because he's been told the route is safe. July 28th, 1945, 9 a.m. Indianapolis departs Guam. Destination Leyte Gulf, 300 miles west. Estimated arrival July 30th. The weather is good. The sea is calm. The ship is making 17 knots. The crew is relaxed. This is just a routine transit. The war is almost over. Everyone knows it. The atomic bomb they just delivered will probably end things any day now. Most of these men will be home by Christmas. They're wrong about that. Aboard Japanese submarine I-58, Commander Mochitsura Hashimoto is hunting. He's been at sea for 2 weeks. He's found nothing. American anti-submarine warfare has become so effective that Japanese submarines are dying faster than they can be replaced. I-58 is equipped with Kaiten, human-guided torpedoes, essentially manned suicide missiles. Hashimoto has 6 of them. He's looking for a target worthy of their sacrifice. July 29, 1945. Indianapolis crosses the Philippine Sea. The night is clear, visibility is good. The moon is nearly full. McVay has ordered a defensive zigzag pattern during daylight hours, but secured the zigzag at sunset because the moonlight makes visual navigation easier, and he's been told there are no submarines in the area. Indianapolis is steaming in a straight line at 17 knots. Perfect target. 11:30 p.m. Hashimoto spots a dark shape on the horizon. At first he thinks it's a destroyer, then he realizes it's bigger. A cruiser maybe, travelling alone and unescorted, not zigzagging, maintaining steady course and speed. He cannot believe his luck. This violates everything he knows about American naval procedures. American ships don't travel alone. They always zigzag in submarine waters. This must be a trap, but it's not a trap. It's just Indianapolis, following orders, travelling a route she's been told is safe. Hashimoto approaches carefully. He's still not sure this isn't some kind of American trick. But the cruiser maintains course. She's not taking evasive action. She's not acting like a ship that knows a submarine is nearby. Hashimoto decides to attack with conventional torpedoes. He'll save the Kaiten for a more difficult target. This is too easy. 11:50 p.m. Hashimoto orders 6 torpedoes fired from a range of 500 meters. It's almost point-blank range for a submarine attack. The torpedoes are Type 95s, oxygen-fueled, weightless, nearly undetectable. They travel at 48 knots. Indianapolis has less than 2 minutes. Aboard Indianapolis, most of the crew is asleep. It's peacetime routine in what they've been told are safe waters. The watch is alert but not particularly vigilant. Nobody is expecting contact. Why would they? The intelligence briefing said the route was safe. 11:57 p.m. The first torpedo hits Indianapolis on the starboard side near the bow. The explosion is catastrophic. The forward fuel tanks rupture and ignite. The forward magazine detonates. The entire bow section forward of the No. 1 turret simply disintegrates. 60 men die instantly, vaporized or blown apart. 12 seconds later, the second torpedo hits amidships. This explosion is even worse. It ruptures the ship's bottom, destroys the forward engine room, kills everyone in the engineering spaces, ignites more fuel. The explosions lift the ship partially out of the water. Men are thrown from their bunks. The lights go out. Emergency lighting flickers on, then dies. The other 4 torpedoes miss. They run under the ship or past it, but 2 hits are enough. Indianapolis is mortally wounded. In the forward compartments, the men who survived the initial explosions are trapped. The watertight doors are jammed or sealed. The compartments are flooding. They pound on the doors, screaming for help. Nobody can help them. They drown in the dark while the ship settles. On the bridge, McVay realizes immediately that his ship is dying. Indianapolis is listing 12 degrees to starboard, and the list is increasing. The bow is gone. Water is pouring in. The forward bulkheads won't hold. He knows the ship has minutes, not hours. He orders distress signals sent, but the communications equipment is destroyed. The radio room is gone. The emergency transmitters are underwater or damaged. No distress signal goes out. Nobody knows Indianapolis has been hit. McVay orders abandon ship, but the power is out. The PA system is dead. The order has to be passed by word of mouth, by men running through the dark corridors shouting. In the chaos and confusion not everyone hears. Some men go to their abandoned ship stations and wait for orders that never come. Others jump immediately. There's no coordination, no organisation. It's chaos. The ship is sinking by the bow. The stern is rising out of the water. Men are sliding down the deck. The list increases to 18 degrees, then 25. Life rafts are launched, but many can't be freed from their securing lines. Men jump into the water wearing life jackets. Others jump with nothing and drown immediately. The fuel oil spreading from the ruptured tanks ignites. Men swimming through burning oil catch fire and die screaming. 12 minutes after the first torpedo hit, Indianapolis reaches a 45-degree list. The stern is pointing at the sky. Men are hanging on to anything bolted down. Some jump, others ride the ship down. At 12:14 a.m., exactly 17 minutes after the torpedo impacts, Indianapolis capsizes completely and sinks stern first. The suction pulls men underwater. Some escape. Most don't. Of the 1,096 men who were aboard Indianapolis when the torpedoes hit, approximately 900 make it into the water alive. 300 died in the explosions or went down with the ship. The 900 in the water are scattered across several square miles of ocean. It's after midnight. It's dark. They can't see each other except occasionally in the moonlight. They're wearing life jackets, most of them, but they have almost no supplies. A few life rafts escape the ship. Most men are just floating in their jackets with nothing. The water temperature is 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Warm enough that hypothermia isn't an immediate threat, but it's warm enough for sharks. This area of the Philippine Sea, later nicknamed Torpedo Junction, is heavily populated with oceanic white-tip sharks. They're aggressive. They're fearless. They attack anything that seems vulnerable, and right now there are 900 vulnerable men floating in their territory. The sharks arrive within hours. The first attacks come before dawn. Men floating alone or in small groups feel something brush against their legs. Then again, harder. Then the pull downward. Then the screaming. The sharks prefer to attack from below, grabbing legs or feet, pulling men underwater, thrashing until the prey stops struggling. The attacks are random, unpredictable. A man can be floating safely one moment and simply disappear the next, pulled down so fast that the men floating next to him barely have time to react. The screaming is the worst part. Men being attacked scream until they go underwater. Then silence. Then sometimes they surface again, still screaming, missing limbs, trailing blood. The sharks come back for them. The other men watch helplessly. There's nothing they can do. They can't fight sharks. They can't help. They can only float and wait and hope they're not next. By dawn on July 30th, the survivors have organized themselves into groups. The largest group, maybe 400 men, has formed around a few life rafts. They cling to the rafts or hold on to lines trailing from them. Commander Lewis Haynes, the ship's senior medical officer, is in this group. He tries to organize them, to maintain discipline, to treat the wounded. But he has no supplies, no medical equipment, no bandages. Men with injuries from the explosions or the sinking are dying from their wounds. There's nothing Haynes can do except watch them die. Another group of about 150 men has formed around a floating cargo net. They hold on to the net, supporting each other, trying to stay together. Other smaller groups scattered across miles of ocean have 10 or 20 or 30 men each. Some men are alone, floating in their life jackets with nobody near them. These isolated men are the most vulnerable. The sharks take them first. The sun rises and the temperature increases. It's going to be a hot day. The men are already thirsty. Salt water surrounds them, but they can't drink it. Drinking seawater accelerates dehydration and causes hallucinations and madness. They know this. They've been trained. But the thirst is overwhelming. Some men drink anyway. They can't help themselves. Within hours they're hallucinating, seeing things that aren't there, swimming toward islands that don't exist. The Navy doesn't know Indianapolis is missing. No distress signal was received. Indianapolis is not expected to arrive at Leyte until July 31st. It's only July 30th. Nobody is looking for them. Nobody knows they need looking for. The 900 men floating in the Philippine Sea are on their own. The heat becomes unbearable. The sun reflects off the water, blinding and burning. Men without shirts develop severe sunburn. Their skin blisters and cracks. The salt water gets into the burns. The pain is constant. Some men remove their life jackets because the jackets chafe their burned skin. Without the jackets, they drown from exhaustion. The bodies float for a while, then sink or are taken by sharks. The hallucinations increase. Men who drank seawater start talking to people who aren't there. They see ships on the horizon that are actually clouds. They swim toward them and disappear. They see islands and dive down thinking they can walk on the bottom. They don't come back up. The men still rational try to stop them, but they're weak, and the hallucinating men are sometimes violent. Fights break out. Men drown each other over imagined slights or shared sips of water that don't exist. Dr. Haynes watches his men deteriorate. He's a doctor, but he's helpless. Men are dying from their wounds, from dehydration, from drinking seawater, from giving up. Some just stop swimming, stop treading water, slip out of their life jackets and sink. Suicide by drowning. Haynes can't stop them. He can barely keep himself alive. The sharks are constant now. They circle below, dark shapes visible in the clear water. They bump against men's legs, testing, probing. When they attack, it's sudden and violent. A man disappears underwater. Sometimes he surfaces screaming. Sometimes he doesn't surface at all. Sometimes just pieces of him surface, torn apart. The blood in the water attracts more sharks. The feeding frenzy begins. Men paddle frantically away from the blood, trying to put distance between themselves and the attack. But there's nowhere to go. They're all vulnerable. The sharks can attack anyone at any time. Night falls on July 30th. The survivors have been in the water for 24 hours. They've had no water, no food, no rescue. Many are delirious. Some are dying. Some are already dead, but their bodies are being held up by their life jackets, floating among the living like grotesque reminders of what's coming for all of them. The strongest men try to maintain order. They organize the groups, keep the men together, discourage drinking seawater, fight off the sharks when they get too close. But they're losing the battle. Men slip away in the darkness, sometimes willingly, sometimes taken by sharks. By dawn on July 31st, there are maybe 600 men still alive. 300 have died in 36 hours. July 31st, morning. This is the day Indianapolis is supposed to arrive at Leyte Gulf, but nobody at Leyte is expecting her. The port director's office has no record of her expected arrival. McVay was supposed to report to Vice Admiral Oldendorf, but Oldendorf's staff doesn't know Indianapolis is coming. There's been a communications failure somewhere. Multiple failures, actually. Indianapolis is not on anyone's arrival list. Nobody reports her as overdue because nobody expected her to arrive. This is the catastrophic failure that will kill hundreds of men. Indianapolis has been sunk for 3 days. 600 men are dying in the ocean, and nobody knows they're missing because of administrative oversight and poor record keeping. The men in the water don't know this. They still believe rescue is coming. Ships must be searching for them. Planes must be flying search patterns. Someone must have received their distress signal. They just need to hold on a little longer. But no distress signal was received. No one is searching. No one is coming. The hallucinations are universal now. Even men who didn't drink seawater are seeing things. Dehydration and sun exposure and exhaustion create delusions. Men see Indianapolis floating nearby, undamaged, waiting to pick them up. They swim toward her. She's always just out of reach. They die swimming toward a ship that sank 3 days ago. Some men see the Statue of Liberty. They're convinced they're in New York Harbor. They need to swim to shore. Their buddies try to stop them, but they fight free. They swim away and disappear. Some see Japanese submarines surfacing. They scream warnings. They dive underwater, trying to hide. They don't come back up. Giles McCoy is a Marine private first class. He's 19 years old. He's been in the water for 3 days. He's watched his friends die. He's been bumped by sharks 12 times. Somehow he's still alive. He clings to a floating potato crate with a few other Marines. They encourage each other, tell jokes, make plans for what they'll do when they're rescued. They don't really believe they'll be rescued anymore, but talking about it helps. A shark takes the man next to McCoy, just pulls him down. McCoy feels the turbulence in the water. He sees the blood. He and the others paddle away. The shark doesn't follow. It's busy. They hear the screaming for a while, then silence. They don't talk for hours after that. August morning. 4 days in the water. Maybe 400 men are still alive. They're barely conscious, dehydrated beyond the point where recovery is possible without medical intervention. Sunburned so badly that their skin is peeling off in sheets, covered in saltwater ulcers. Some are blind from sun exposure. All are hallucinating, at least occasionally. They're dying, all of them, just at different rates. Lieutenant Chuck Gwynn is piloting a PV-1 Ventura bomber on routine anti-submarine patrol. He's not looking for survivors. Nobody told him to look for survivors because nobody knows there are survivors to find. He's just flying his assigned patrol pattern at 3,000 feet, bored, watching the ocean pass below him. At 11:25 a.m., Gwynn notices an oil slick on the water. It's unusual. Oil slicks can indicate submarine activity. He descends to investigate. At 1,000 feet, he sees something in the water. Bodies. No, not bodies. Some of them are moving. They're people. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, scattered across miles of ocean. Gwynn doesn't know what he's found. There shouldn't be anyone out here. This area is supposed to be empty. He radios his base, reports bodies in the water. Lots of them. Some alive. He doesn't know who they are or how they got there. He just knows they need help immediately. The survivors see Gwynn's plane. Some wave. Some are too weak to wave. Some think the plane is hallucination. They've seen so many things that weren't real in the last 4 days. Why would this be different? But the plane is real. It circles. It descends. The pilot is definitely looking at them. Some men cry. Some pray. Some just float and watch. They've given up hope so many times that they're afraid to hope again. Gwynn drops a life raft and a radio transmitter. The raft lands near one of the groups. They pull themselves into it. The transmitter floats nearby. They recover it. But they're too weak to operate it properly. Their hands don't work right. Someone eventually gets it working. They send a garbled message. Position uncertain. Many men in water. Need help immediately. The message reaches Lieutenant Commander George Atterbury at Philippine Sea Frontier Headquarters. He doesn't know who these men are or what ship they came from. But people are dying in the ocean. He orders every available ship and plane to the area. The rescue operation begins, but it's mid-afternoon now. The rescue ships are hours away at best. The men in the water have to survive a little longer. Some won't make it. Every hour, every minute, more men die. Some from their injuries, some from dehydration, some from exhaustion. Some are taken by sharks even as a rescue approaches. Lieutenant Adrian Marks is piloting a PBY Catalina seaplane. He arrives at the scene at 3:30 p.m. He sees the survivors scattered below. He's ordered not to land. PBYs aren't supposed to land in open ocean. The swells are too high. The risk of damage is too great. But Mark sees men in the water being attacked by sharks. He sees men dying while he circles overhead. He decides to disobey orders. He lands the PBY in rough seas. The plane is immediately damaged. The hull is breached, but it floats. Marks and his crew begin pulling men out of the water. They pull 56 aboard before the plane is too full, too damaged to take off again. Marks is now floating in a sinking plane surrounded by sharks, with 56 critically injured survivors. But at least those 56 are out of the water. The first rescue ship, USS Doyle, arrives after midnight. 4.5 days after Indianapolis sank, the crew of Doyle works through the night pulling men from the water. Many are unconscious. Some are dead but still in their life jackets. The sharks are active, attracted by the lights. The rescue crew fights them off while pulling survivors aboard. Other ships arrive. Cecil Doyle, Madison, Ralph Talbot, Dufilo, Bassett, Ringnes, Register. They form a search line and comb the area. They find small groups and individual survivors, some coherent, some delirious, some nearly dead. The rescue continues through the night and into August 3. By the afternoon of August 3, the rescue is complete. No more survivors are found. The count is 316 men rescued alive. Of the 1,196 men aboard Indianapolis when she sailed from Guam, 880 are dead or missing. It's the greatest loss of life from a single ship in US Navy history. The survivors are evacuated to Guam and Peleliu for medical treatment. Many are in critical condition. Severe dehydration, sun poisoning, saltwater ulcers, shark bites, injuries from the sinking. Some die in the hospital in the following days, bringing the death toll even higher. The ones who survive physically carry psychological scars that will never heal. They have nightmares about sharks. They can't swim in the ocean. Some can't take baths because being surrounded by water triggers flashbacks. They see their friends dying over and over. The screaming, the blood, the feeling of helplessness. It never goes away. Some drink to forget. Some isolate themselves. Some seem fine on the surface but wake up screaming in the night for decades after. The Navy's response is to find someone to blame. The disaster is too big, too embarrassing to acknowledge as system failure. Someone must be held accountable. That someone is Captain Charles McVay III. In December 1945, McVay is court-martialed for hazarding his ship by failing to zigzag and for failing to order abandoned ship in a timely manner. The charges are absurd. The first is contradicted by his orders, which gave him discretion about zigzagging. The second is absurd because he ordered abandoned ship immediately after the torpedoes hit. But the Navy needs a scapegoat. The prosecution calls Commander Hashimoto, the Japanese submarine captain who sank Indianapolis, to testify. This is unprecedented. An enemy combatant testifying against an American officer. Hashimoto testifies that zigzagging would not have prevented the attack. Indianapolis was a perfect target regardless. His testimony should exonerate McVay. Instead, the court-martial board ignores it. McVay is convicted of failing to zigzag. He's acquitted on the second charge. His sentence is a letter of reprimand. It's a light sentence, but it destroys him. He's the only US Navy captain court-martialed for losing his ship to enemy action in World War II. The stigma follows him for the rest of his life. The survivors defend McVay. They write letters. They testify on his behalf. They point out that the real failures were the faulty intelligence briefing that told McVay the route was safe, the failure to route Indianapolis through safer waters, the failure to provide escort, the failure to report her as overdue, the failure to search when she didn't arrive. McVay made no mistakes. The system failed. But the Navy won't acknowledge system failure. It's easier to blame one man. Fleet Admiral Chester Nimitz, Commander-in-Chief of the Pacific Fleet, agrees. He remits McVay's sentence. But the damage is done. McVay's career is over. He retires in 1949. He tries to live normally but can't escape Indianapolis. People blame him. Survivors' families blame him. He receives hate mail, anonymous letters telling him he murdered their sons or husbands or brothers. November 6, 1968. Charles McVay III is 69 years old. He's retired, living in Connecticut. The hate mail still arrives occasionally. He still dreams about the sinking, about the men he couldn't save, about the court-martial, about Commander Hashimoto testifying that the zigzag wouldn't have mattered. He holds his service revolver, a .38 caliber Smith & Wesson. He puts it to his head. He pulls the trigger. The survivors are devastated. They know McVay was scapegoated. They know he didn't deserve what happened to him. They campaigned for decades to clear his name. They write letters to Congress. They give interviews. They testify before congressional committees. They're old men now, dying one by one, but they keep fighting. In 2000, 55 years after the sinking, Congress passes a resolution exonerating McVay. It states that the court-martial was unjust, that McVay was not responsible for the loss of Indianapolis, that he served his country honourably. The resolution comes too late for McVay. He's been dead for 32 years, but his name is cleared. The survivors achieve their goal. The last survivor of USS Indianapolis, Harold Bray, dies in 2021 at age 96. With his death, the final living witness to those 4.5 days in the ocean is gone. The story now exists only in records and testimonies and nightmares that died with the men who had them. Remember USS Indianapolis not as statistics about casualties or logistics failures, but as human tragedy. 1,996 young men, average age 20, aboard a ship doing her duty, torpedoed through no fault of their own, 900 of them in the water, 4.5 days of hell, sharks, dehydration, madness, only 316 surviving. The others dying one by one while nobody searched, because nobody knew they needed searching for. Remember the system failures that killed them, the intelligence briefing that was wrong, the routing that was careless, the lack of escort, the administrative confusion that meant nobody reported Indianapolis overdue, the failure to search. If any one of these failures had been prevented, hundreds of men would have lived. Remember Captain McVay, scapegoated for institutional failures, driven to suicide by a court-martial that shouldn't have happened. Remember that the Japanese submarine commander testified the zigzag wouldn't have mattered. Remember that McVay did everything right and was punished anyway because the Navy needed someone to blame. Remember the survivors who defended their captain for 55 years until his name was cleared. Who knew the truth? Who fought to tell it? Who died still fighting, some of them? Their loyalty to McVay is testament to his character and to the injustice of his treatment. Remember that this disaster was preventable at multiple points. The 1880 men died not from enemy action, primarily, but from failures in the system that was supposed to protect them. That the sharks and the dehydration and the madness killed them, but the real killer was negligence and bureaucratic incompetence and the refusal to acknowledge system failure. This is the story of USS Indianapolis. July 30th, 1945, torpedoed and sunk in 12 minutes. 900 men in the water. 4.5 days of horror. Sharks attacking constantly. Men going mad from thirst, hallucinations, death everywhere. Nobody searching because nobody knew. 316 rescued. 180 dead. The worst disaster in US Navy history, the one the Navy tried to hide by blaming one good man who did nothing wrong except survive when his ship didn't.